recording it. I will be sending out an email to everybody that participated.
You'll get it in a second. Or you can just watch mine.
Let's see. Hang on. Let me mute somebody. There we go. I will be setting out the recording so that if you missed anything or I went too fast, you can go back. I also have a YouTube tutorial that's about 10 minutes long. It's a lot shorter, but I'll be sending that out as well. So you'll have two kind of different perspectives on this. So I won't really be monitoring the chat once I get started, just because I'll get confused and I'll get lost, but you're welcome to interact with each other in the chat. And at the end of the session, I'd like to leave about 5 minutes for questions and answers, and I'll jump right back over to the chat. But feel free to interact with each other if you'd like. That's great. Oops, somebody's in the lobby. There we go. Okay, so just in the chat, if you would not mind sharing what your experience right now is with Spheros, what you're doing with Sphero, how long you've had them, just one sentence telling me a little bit about where you are in the Sphero journey. That's okay. That's okay, Julie. Okay, Jeanette, that makes sense. Okay. I have 4 of them. Okay, that sounds good. We started using, okay, different schools in the county, no experience, that's okay. I'm gonna turn my phone off because every time somebody comments, it beeps, so if you can hear it. Okay, so it sounds like most of you are new to Sphero, which is fantastic. It actually makes me think that if you guys like this format of doing the live webinars, then I'll just do one that's going through all the things that Sphero can do. But today what we're gonna focus is on the classroom feature, and I'll tell you why. When I was a school librarian, I think I had 40 Spheros, which was awesome. I had absolutely no idea how to keep up with 40 different Spheros. And not only that, I had students that were standing over each other. I had students that were using the same iPad, so it was very hard for me to track anything they were doing, or I'd have to keep track of lots of emails if students were sending me pictures, screenshots of their code. It was just very overwhelming. And also, by the way, if you don't have a bolt pack, I did not have a bolt pack, and I had to charge 40 Spheros somehow along the wall in my library office. So that was super not awesome. So you probably have experienced that if you're new to Sphero and you don't have bolt packs. That is definitely a challenge. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to make that easier for yourself, how to create a Sphero classroom, which keeps everything in one place, and you'll have an account for each of your class. You'll have an account, you'll have a classroom for each of the sets of students that you see. And I'll show you how you can do that. So if you're a librarian and you don't necessarily want classes, but you want people to be able to sign in, I'll show you how to do that. And I'll show you how, if you're a classroom teacher, how to set your Sphero classroom up that way. So kind of the way I'd like to do this is if you can do 2 screens where you're kind of watching me on one side and then doing it at the same time, that's great. If not, you can just watch me and then do the recording and follow along later. But I learn best by doing. So if you want to kind of be following along and doing the same thing with me, I think that's probably the best way to do it. Okay, let me see if there's anything else before I start sharing my screen. Okay, so the things that we're going to be covering today, I want to make sure that you can see how Sphero can be a really intentional part of your instruction. Sometimes, especially when I first got Sphero in my classroom, it sort of turned into like playtime toy, and I didn't really understand how to make it a very intentional part of my instruction. And then my 8th graders would basically slam them into walls and drop them from tables and that sort of thing. So I didn't really have a plan. So the Sphero classroom is going to help you with a plan. How do I make this something meaningful that actually meets my standards and does something related to my curriculum? I'm going to show you how to set up an account, how to add classes and assignments, how to share programs. I'm going to show you what a student sees from their perspective. We're going to talk a little bit about Google Classroom, if you use Google Classroom, and then how to archive old classes. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, is everybody able to see my screen? Can somebody give me a thumbs up or a wave if you can see my Sphero screen? Okay, so if you're going to be following along and doing this with me, oh, thanks, Jeanette. I'm going to have you go ahead and go to edu.sphero.com. So if you're on your computer or laptop or device and you're able to open up a second screen, edu.sphero.com. You're going to want to bookmark that website. That is going to be your starting place for all things Sphero. So make sure you do that edu before, or you'll just wind up on their commercial site to purchase things. So we're going to be on edu.sphero.com. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our account if you don't have one already, or sign in. So up at the top right, you'll click sign in. Now I know this sounds like a duh, but it's really important. You'll want to make sure to select teachers, because if you don't, you will not be able to set up classrooms. So we're going to select teachers and manage your class. Now, if you already have an account for Sphero and you know this part, go ahead and sign in. If you don't, you can click sign up and go ahead and create your own account. If your school or district uses a single sign-on with Google or Clever, you can also do that right here. But I'm going to go ahead and sign in with Google. And I am going to use this account here. Okay, and I'm going to give everybody a minute to catch up. Ooh, this time's going to go fast. So once you're signed in, it will take you to the teacher screen, and you'll have this Sphero EDU Basics box here. It just gives you some information. If you click on the Getting Started tips, this is a great way if you kind of forget some of those basic things, like what happens if my Sphero is blinking, or what are the newest features on the Sphero app. You can click into this tip section and get all of that information right here. And if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll get Getting Started as an Educator. And this is a very pared down version of what we're doing today. So if you still want some more information today after we're done, you can click on this section. It will give you all kinds of content about being an educator and using the Sphero app. So once you've looked at that, if you don't want to keep looking at that on your screen, there's a little section up at the top that says, I don't need to see this anymore. And you can click that box and it'll go away. So that's just something to keep in mind if that annoys you once you've seen it once or twice. Okay, so just quickly on the home screen, you'll see over here, I've got my icon for my sign-in. So you can put an avatar if you want. Your students can also add an avatar. I can access my profile, and I can also access messages. Up here is our home tab, activities, programs, classes, and Drive. So for those of you who are new to Sphero and have only used it a little bit in your classroom, you've probably spent most of your time in Drive, and your students are essentially running the Spheros around the room and crashing them into each other. But there's so much more that Sphero can do. We're going to start out in classes, and you'll see here that we have a couple of different options. We have learners, we have assignments, and we have moderate. And you can actually jump to each of these from each of the others. So there's many different ways to get to all the different areas. But we're going to classes and learners. And you'll see here that we have an option to add a new class. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is add a new class. Now I'm going to stop for just a second and make sure everybody's okay. Does anybody need me to stop before I start adding a class? Everybody's okay?
Can I sync one from Google?
You absolutely can. We're going to get there in just a minute. You absolutely can. Yes.
Okay.
In fact, I'm glad you said that, Carol. If you are using Google Classroom, do not create a new class with me right now. Wait until we get to that part, because otherwise you're going to be double working. Okay. I'm so glad you said that. If you're a Google Classroom user, don't do what I'm doing right now. You can just watch. Wait till we get to the Google Classroom part to save yourself some energy. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a new class. And you have three options, and I just wanted to tell you quickly about why you'd pick each one. So the class code is what most of us as teachers have used in the past, like if you use Kahoot, or I'm trying to think of something else with the class code. Like pretty much everything has a class code now. It's the easiest one to use. It's the easiest one to set up, and it's really good if you have young learners. This is your library one. If you're a librarian and you're trying to use Sphero Classroom, this is what you're going to want to use. It's a class code. Again, it's great for your younger ones who don't want to remember or can't remember passwords. If you're in a camp or a summer program or after school classes, class code is your easiest. The standard class is your most powerful. It's going to have all the features of the Sphero classroom because all of the work is going to be saved under the student as opposed to one big class. So you're not going to want to do that on, like if you're a librarian or if you are working with a big group of students that aren't yours, you probably aren't going to want to do the standard class. But if you have a set roster of students and you want to use as many of the powerful parts of Sphero EDU as possible, you're going to want to go with the standard class. The only thing I'm going to tell you about standard class is it is a pain in the rear to set up. So there are a lot more steps in standard class, where class code is very, very quick. So keep that in mind. And then the last version is also standard, but if you have your roster in a CSV format, like in an Excel spreadsheet, you can download this template and then copy and paste your roster and then upload it right back in, and you won't have to fill anything out. So that is a really good option if you want to use all the powerful features, but you don't want to type in everybody's information. You can use the CSV version. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go to class code. Let me just try to get in. Okay, so we're going to go to class code, and the first thing you're going to do for any of the kinds of classes is give it a name. So I'm going to call this 2021 Team So Sample. Oops. Okay, so I'm using the class code, and my class code pops up right here. So your students don't actually even need to sign in if you're using the class code, which again is great if you're in a public setting where you don't necessarily want to keep track of individual students. So you can have them copy this code, or you can post this code somewhere, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it now, and all they will have to do is type in the code to access your classroom. So I'm going to show you what that looks like from a student perspective in just a minute. Then the next thing you would do is just enter the student's last name and first initial. You actually don't even have to do this. If you give them the code, they can also enter their last and first, or their first name and last initial. I did that backwards. First name. You don't want their last names for privacy. Okay, so they can do this as well. And you'll see that I have my new class right here, and my first student shows up down here. Okay, so that's the second way. And then the third way, you download the Excel template, it'll pop up down at the bottom of your screen, you'll copy and paste your roster, and then you'll upload it right back in here, and it'll take you back to the same teacher screen here. Okay, so once you have students entered, and I'm actually going to add another one just so you see what it looks like. That's my boss. The really nice thing about your Sphero classroom is you can see what's happening in your class very, very quickly. So if I click on Christine, oh, she hasn't done anything. I can see what work she's doing, what her progress is, what activities she's working on, what program she's involved in, just by clicking on her name. So it's a very quick way to see what your students are doing. You can add learners here, by the way. If they didn't add themselves, you can add your learners right here. I'm going to do something really quick because I want to swap out and show you a different profile. So give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I wanted to show you one other thing. But I had one that had the assignments in there to show you. Okay, that's all right. Okay, so those of you who are going to use Google Classroom, this is where you come in right here. So underneath add a new class, instead of adding a new class, you're going to add or sync your Google Classroom. So you'll click it, and the stinky part is I don't have a school account, so I can't go directly to it. I would actually have to go through a verification process because I'm using a business email. So I would have to get verification. If you have single sign-on with Google, then you probably will not have to go through the verification process, and you would it would immediately link to your Google Classroom. So that's right there, add sync Google Classroom is how you handle adding in your Google Classroom. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to do is show you on this classroom page. So I have my students, I have my class. I want to see how the class is doing overall with just one quick view. I can click on progress report. And then this is a really neat thing about Sphero, and they're adding to this constantly. They use probably the same standards that you're using in your classroom. So they're using the Common Core, they're using CSTA, they're using NextGen, but they also have several states and they keep adding to these. And so I know we have several Indiana people in the house right now. So they have the Indiana standards. If you're in Texas or Florida or Tennessee, I saw we had several Tennessee and Ohio. All of you guys are represented. So your state standards are in here as well. So you can select a standard and then do a quick report, and you can see how your students are progressing towards the standards that you're working on. So that's a really neat feature. You can do a custom report if you only want to see certain students or certain activities, or you can also have this quick report emailed to you automatically. So if you click that button right here, then every month you're going to get an email that gives you the report of how your students are doing overall, which standards they've met, which standards they still need to meet. So that progress report is a great way to keep up with assessment and student learning. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you, I still got people popping in, hang on. Okay. Whoops, lost a page here. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to show you is how to add an assignment to your classes. So we're going to come into Assign, and you can see here that there are activities that you can assign. There are shared programs, and then your students can also share programs with you. And there is a feature here, which is really nice, that you have to review it before it goes public to your classroom page. So that's, if you've ever taught middle school, you know that that's really important, that you probably want to preview before things are published publicly. So if I want to assign an activity, if you're going to create an activity from scratch, which you can do, it would be listed right here. If you purchased Sphero's Computer Science Foundations course, I think they have 3 courses, that's going to be right here. So that's a very scaffolded approach, but I always use, and probably you use, the free Sphero activities. So there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of activities, which is a little overwhelming. So up at the top, you can filter. You'll filter by the robot that you have. Probably most of us have the Bolt, but not everybody will have the Bolt. Then you can filter by your class. You can sort, you can find certain grade levels. So if you're teaching the littles, you could maybe go kindergarten through 2nd grade. And it will filter that out for you. If you only have a certain amount of time, you can filter by time. This is really cool and a new feature. You can filter by tags if you want, or standards. So if you're responsible for a certain standard, like let's say you teach in Indiana and you teach 2nd grade, you can filter out by the standard and the grade level. So that is really, really helpful if that's your situation. Okay, so I'm going to clear all of that out because I know what I'm looking for. I have a specific activity that I want my students to learn, and it's about looping. So I'm going to search for loops, and here's the program right here. I love this program. If you're looking for something to start your kids with block coding, Blocks 1 is great. But before I do anything with it, I probably want to preview it and make sure it's exactly what I want. So when I click on preview, it's going to tell me which robots can I use this program with. So some of them won't work, some of them will, but you can see you've got the Sphero, you've got the Mini, you've got the Rover, and you've got the Bolt. So any of those robots will work for this activity. It'll give you the tags. So this is great for hour of code, for block coding, the engineering design process. And then it will give you the standards that they link to. So really good information. Then it'll give you some information up at the top. How long should this activity take you? It never took me 2 hours, but maybe it'll take somebody 2 hours. What grade levels it's appropriate for, how many people liked this activity. It'll give you the learning objectives and then very specific instructions. As your students are working on this, they'll be completing mark complete, mark complete, mark complete as they're working. And that's what you'll be able to see from the classroom. So I know that this is the activity I want to use. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Go back. Go back to my blocks. Okay, so I know this is the activity I want to use, so I'm going to add it. And now I have it right here. It's an assigned activity. And if I decide, oops, I don't want them to do that, I can remove my activity right there. So now that I have an assigned activity, I can look down and say, well, Corey has not even started the Loops program. Or we could say, if Christine had been working on it, oh, Christine's completed it. Or it'll tell you how far into the activity they've gotten. So it's a lot more effective in terms of keeping track of what your students are doing. So when I was doing this and I didn't have Sphero Classroom, I really had no idea where my students were in the activities that I was assigning. So that's a really great way to keep on track. Now, your students, again, can also share their programs with you or with each other. So that's a really neat feature as well that will let you have them collaborating on a block code or on a text code project or even a draw code. So if you guys wind up virtual, which I know in Pennsylvania is always up in the air, we never know, it's a great way to continue to use Sphero at a distance. They can work on their coding together collaboratively. Or if you have kids in different classrooms who want to work on a project, it's a really good feature that they can share. Okay, I'm going to run out of time, so I want to see what else. All right, I wanted to show you what the code looks like from the student perspective. So I'm going to sign out. And then I'm going to sign back in, but this time I'm going to come in as a learner. And I'm going to use my class code. So I saved it a minute ago, and I'm going to submit. And there are the two names that I entered. So I could choose myself here, but as a teacher, if I don't want to go through that trouble, or if I'm a librarian at a public library and I don't want to do that, you can have them put their own name in. So we can say, and now that person is automatically added to the class. There's that activity that I assigned to my classes. Now, if Joe wanted to go ahead and create his own program, he would click on Create Program. He would give it a name. He would decide if he's doing a draw code, a block code, or a text code. We're going to stick with blocks. He would choose his robot. We're going to do the bolt, and he'd create. Whoops, I think I just put two of them. It's okay. And he would go right into his program. So if I want to do a really, really simple program, I could do a roll block. We're going to roll 0 degrees at speed. By the way, tell your students not to bump the speed up all the way to 255 because you'll have Sphero slamming all over the place into walls and into each other. And then we're going to have it roll for 2 seconds. Okay, so he could very easily create his program and get all of his information that he wants. And now Joe's program is listed as well as the program I assigned him. And when I go back into my classroom, I'll see that Joe has a program. He can share with his classmates right here, or he can share with me as his teacher. So that's that collaborative piece. Oops. So we're going to sign out. And I'm going to go back in as a teacher. I can't remember if I did that there. Okay, so that's kind of the basic piece of information. That's like here's how you get started with the classroom. I did want to show you one more thing. When you get to the end of the school year, if you have your whole list of classes, you probably don't want to take it into the next school year. And there's not an easy way to delete. So what you'll do is come over to the 3 dots and you'll archive your class. And then it will basically go into this list of kind of dimmed out classes so that you can access them later, but you can hide them so they're not there. They're not visible. So hide archive classes, and that's how you can keep your space organized. So that is basically the end of the basics of Sphero Classroom. I know that was really fast. A half an hour is much faster than I expected it to be. What we looked at today was creating your account. We looked at setting up and managing your classrooms and keeping things organized with that archive function. So what I'm going to do now is jump back over into the main class area here, and I'm going to see if anybody has questions or thoughts or troubles. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you want, or put it in the chat and we'll talk. We have a couple minutes left, so I'd be happy to do that.
So are they using like an iPad to do this?
Okay, that's a great question. Really, any device will work with Sphero that has the Bluetooth functionality. I find, and somebody just asked me this the other day that I was doing training with, the iPad for me is the easiest device to use if you have access. But a Chromebook will work just as well, or a phone. You know, if the students have BYODs and you bring your own phones, a phone will work just fine. But yes, iPad to me is the easiest to use.
Yes. Okay.
But
yeah, we have iPads.
Okay, I couldn't find the class you chose. Okay, Julie, can you give me more on that? Or was that Kim? That was Kim.
Yeah, I think both of us. It's just I tried searching for the class title, the blocks.
Oh, the loops. Okay.
Yeah, the loops. Like it just would not come up. And I took all my filters off.
Okay, let me see if I can get you to it a different way. If you're on this your main screen, if you go to activities and all activities,
okay,
there's a search button up here. Actually, it's right there anyway. It's right here when it comes up. It's blocks 1:loops.
So can I assign activities from that
Yes.
screen, from that tab?
You click into it.
Uh-huh.
Yes, you can. You can just click into it and then you'd be able to assign it. And I will tell you too, if you've got littles, I'd actually start them with the draw 1, 2, 3. If you have 4th and up, I'd go into blocks 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then if you've got high schoolers who've already had some experience, I would jump into text 1, 2, 3, and 4. Does that help?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
I've got
What
mine.
a report looks like.
Oh, a report? Okay, so I'm going to try, but the only problem is if I don't have assignments in there, I don't know what's going to pop up. So we'll try it. Progress report. So let's say I want the Indiana standards, quick report. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to let me do it because I don't have any assignments in there, but I should have done that. And I can send a copy of that out when I send the recording out to everybody, but it should pop up as an Excel file at the bottom of the screen that when you would open up, you would see it.
If you're using the iPads, is it better to have one Sphero always connected to one iPad?
So that is a great question. And this is how, okay, do you have a bolt pack? Or do you just have separate Spheros?
I think there's a bolt pack. There's kind of stuff everywhere, but I think there's a bolt pack.
So the reason I ask is because if you have a bolt pack, they're all stuck in one place together, right? They're like in that suitcase thing. So what I do is I have a student go up at a time to the bolt pack and then hit connect and their Sphero will light up. And then they take their Sphero back to their desk and the next kid comes up. Otherwise, you will have chaos trying to figure out which Sphero goes with which iPad. The other thing I would suggest, and this doesn't have anything to do with classroom, as soon as they connect, if they click on drive or aim, they can change the color of their Sphero. So right away, they'll know that the green Sphero is John's and the pink Sphero is Debbie's. And so you can do that. You can change the color right away, and that helps the chaos of which Sphero is mine.
Something that we also do with our Spheros, we have a bolt pack. And if they lose their Spheros or something, we have them go to the drive and we make them rainbow it. And that way they can go, okay, that's my Sphero. I know that one's mine because mine's doing the rainbow colors.
That's a great idea. As opposed to everybody having a color, have everybody have no color and then turn on the color if you lose your Sphero.
Exactly. That's exactly what we do.
That's a great idea. Yeah, it will get very chaotic very quickly if you haven't tried this before and try to have 30 kids connect to Spheros at once. They all start lighting up and they don't know which Sphero is theirs. So I always send one kid up with one iPad and find their Sphero.
Hey, before I knew what I was doing, I set up my classroom and it's individual students, but I've got them partner up. Is there
Okay.
any way to go in and change the individuals to partners?
So I think the way I would do it is you can edit your learners. And I think, is that how you do it? Can you edit the learner or do you have to add this? So they already have work under their individual names. Is that they've already been working?
Yes, but I think because, and we use the laptops and it's one Sphero per laptop. And I
Mhm.
think they've been using the same laptop, that individual's laptop. So it's probably all the work has been done under one of the students. But I guess I need to set it up to where they're showing partner under that one laptop, under that one Sphero.
That's how I would do it. Or I would change the student's name to have both of their names. So it would say Jane and John. So you know that those two are always together. You could do it that way too.
And I can edit it through the three dots
Yes, or you could remove them and start a new one.
and add them back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we've got the minis, and I did put little dots on the outside of the case of the little minis, a little round dot with their code on it.
So
And
smart.
that's kind of been working.
That is so smart. For the bolts and the regular Spheros, they don't have the cases with them. So it's really hard to do. But that's the really nice thing about the mini is that you have the little cases with them. That's a great idea.
But
Also,
what is not nice is you got to take it out of the case to charge it, and then they roll, and then the case gets shuffled. But we try to keep them together.
It is definitely challenging, but I will say they stay protected longer. The
Yeah.
Spheros are pretty hardy. Like you can actually race them underwater. I don't know if anybody's ever tried that, but we used to race them underwater in math class, and they can go under 10 meters or above in water and be just fine. They're pretty hardy, but that's a nice thing with littles, especially if you have those covers and you put the covers on, it does protect them longer. They don't get as scratched up, and they stay nicer longer. You can also drop them, by the way. If anybody's looked at some of the activities, there's a hot potato game. You can drop them from about 10 meters as well. I would not suggest telling your kids that unless you're specifically using the activity, or they'll just be tossing them at each other and at the walls. So be prepared.
We do a battle box. Like we do a battle
Yes.
royale, and they get to build like their own like little shield with like plastic cups on top of them, and they get to design it however they want, and we do a battle royale.
I love it. We did the same thing. Gave them any kind of this is really dangerous for littles, but we did it with middle school where they had like push pins or nails or whatever. And they had the cups and we put balloons on the wall and they all started and whoever could pop the balloons first won. It was a blast. It was a total mess, but it was so much fun.
Yeah, we put little cups on top of ours and they got they had popsicle sticks that they could use to like defend each other, and they had a blast. And we had
awesome.
You have to stay in this arena, and in order to win, in order to get knocked out, your cup has to come off your battle bot, and it was a blast. The kids had so much fun.
That is fantastic, and such great design thinking, right? Like they really have to do some thinking and doing some prototyping. Like you have the whole engineering design process there. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, they took we spent an entire week just building their shields, and they got to okay, this isn't working, so we're going to try it this way. And it was so cool to watch how their minds were working and fixing little issues.
I love that. And if you're in a studio, if some of you are in our design studios, you can also bring in your 3D printing, if you want, or if you have a Glowforge, and you can combine those as well. So Sphero's working with the 3D printing that the kids are doing for their shields. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can connect that. Any other questions or thoughts? I'm kind of past our time, and I told you I'd stay only half an hour. I don't want to keep you guys. I know you are way busy right now.
Can you show very quickly how I can I know you show I can see what they're doing, but is there any way that I can monitor them or see what they did through over the end of the week?
Yeah, so you can do it through the progress report. The progress report will print out exactly where they are. But then I didn't do assignments, which I need to remember for the next time. When I click into this person, it will show you exactly how far along they are in their activity. It'll show you, because they have to click off, they completed this, they completed this, they completed this. So you'll see right away how far they are. You can also, if they're creating their own programs, you can click on their program and you can like it and you can comment on it. So you can actually do some informal assessment right there in the program by leaving a comment for them on their program. So it would show up right here. All I did was click on the student's name, and it pulls up this screen, and you'd see all their activities and all their programs, and you can interact with them right there. They can also like each other's programs. I just, like I said, as a middle school teacher, I always had to be a little careful with public commenting. You just never know what you're going to get with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, but you know your kids best. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and close it for today. What I'd really like to know is if you like this format, if you would like to see future webinars like this, if this is a good time, is 30 minutes enough, not enough, that sort of thing. If you would be willing to, Kim, I have absolutely no idea the answer to that question, but I will certainly find out. We don't have PGPs in Pennsylvania. We have something else. So let me ask about that. Or if I can figure out how to get permission to give PGPs.
Thank you. Sometimes it can just be like a little thing on letterhead. So, such and such attended this session for 30 minutes, something like that. Sometimes that'll do.
Okay, so if you would like PGPs, if you're a Indiana person and you want PGPs, would you send me an email at Corey@STEMeducationworks.com, and I will make sure that whoever emails me that, I will put something on letterhead that says they attended, blah, 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 and try to get you that PGP. Katie, I see what you're saying about good time. If anybody has suggestions for a better time, I mean, this is what I do all day now, so I am very flexible. I want to make sure you guys have, how it works for your schedule, because I remember that schedule really well. So send me an email if you have ideas for topics. I was thinking about doing Little Bits Fuse Classroom next month. If anybody's interested in the Little Bits Fuse, it's a great program, especially if we go virtual again, to still be using your Little Bits, but not be in person. So that was kind of what I was thinking about for next month. But if you have other ideas, if you think we should just have an open forum where people can share what they're doing, if there's a specific technology in your studio you want more help with, anything like that, send me ideas at Corey@STEMeducationworks.com, and I'll put them on the calendar. So this is just kind of our way to support you all in your studios. And those of you who don't have studios, we're supporting you anyway. We just want you to enjoy what you're doing. I love ed tech. Okay, that's a good, okay, Jeanette, I see it. 45. Yeah, we're kind of going there anyway, Greg. We're kind of going to 45 minutes anyway. Okay, I see that. Okay, well, I'm going to stop the recording. I will send it out to everybody by email. I will also send you the link to my YouTube, which is the same kind of thing, but just in a little, snazzier format. And I will definitely check out the PGP thing and try to get you guys your PGPs. So, and if you're in a different state and you have your own professional development thingy and you'd like to get credits for it, would you email me as well? I'd be happy to do the legwork on that and see if I can get you some credit for these things. Okay, well, I hope everybody has a fantastic Wednesday and hopefully you get to the weekend quickly. My heart goes out to all of you guys in the crazy land that it is right now to teach. I miss teaching, but I don't miss the stuff you guys are having to deal with right now. So I hope you have a great week, and I will send out an email with that stuff and tell you about the next one coming up next month. Thanks for coming.